And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 show, the fastest hour football talk on the planet. Coming at you live on X and YouTube. And of course, you can catch all things Football 360 at football360show.com. And I was remiss last week because I didn't mention the fact that you can catch the audio version only of the show on Spotify as well as Apple Music as well. And that our beautiful theme song is on there as well.
It's on. You can get on any of those Apple. It's like a myriad of whatever. Once you go on to Apple, it sends it out to like every podcasting service.
Yeah,
available.
And there's a ton of them.
Yep.
But we're coming at you live right now. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon on X and YouTube. And man, like it's a nice, almost fall day out, and we're almost at fall. Next week, it's going to officially be fall, and just great weather for football this past weekend. And Friday, I was in Kansas City, and it was almost cold in Kansas City.
You're going to have to take up residence over there, pay a city tax for working over there.
I'm telling you what, the talent needs to move more towards this side of the state, but it's got me over there almost every week. Now I'm catching games here in St. Louis and in
the Thursday night
and a Saturday night. So I usually see about 3 to 4 games a week. And then that doesn't even include the like middle school stuff that goes on, which you're very familiar with. Your team kicked off its middle school season, the Junior Longhorns.
Yeah, week 1.
Yeah. How successful were you guys?
We had a pretty good day.
Yeah.
Some things we can clean up.
50-0.
30-0
Look at you guys. Yeah.
A tough thing is at that age. It's to me, it's tough because they have these running clock rules, right? With the mercy rule, which, I understand the intent, but the problem is we're trying to get kids reps. Like, turn the scoreboard off. Like, if someone's up that big, who cares?
Yeah.
Let the kids play football, right? And so, you get in a scenario where we're up 30-0, really towards the end of the first quarter, and then at that point, it's just pretty much a race, and they're 8-minute quarters. So they're just, run a clock 8 minutes with the inefficiency of balls getting back and spotted and chains moving and, plays getting sent in and out. I mean, we ran 18 plays on offense.
So you're saying that the game's going too fast?
It's way too fast. It's just, you want to get kids reps. You want to get kids in there. I mean, they work all off season. We had a situation where a ref, an egregious spot, and he knew it. He even admitted it. And then he turned around and goes, well, it's not going to make that big of a difference in the game. And I said, well, if you're the kid waiting on the sideline for his turn to go in, it's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's the beauty of junior football is it's not, to me, winning and losing is part of it, right? You're teaching those guys how to be competitive. But more than anything, they're just getting game reps, which are so valuable at that age. So when they get to high school, they're ready to go.
Yeah, I think that the not wanting to embarrass somebody, not wanting to get people hurt is probably overrides the fact that you're there because you're trying to teach.
Yeah, you want to execute,
trying to develop players, and I really don't think in the grand scheme of things. I think a lot of people have the mindset, including the people that run it, is we want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
We want to give them an outlet. We want to have fun, but we don't want to be serious about it.
Yeah, but you're trying to develop them for high school. That
Absolutely.
is the vast majority of the kids on my team will play high school football.
Right.
And so they're trying to prepare. I would say some might not. Some might go the other route of a different sport or something like that. But when they're in middle school, especially in 8th grade, they're
I agree.
They're 7 games now away from being high school football players. Right. Yeah. And that's, one of those things. So, but, and on the other side of it, you got things, that, the youth sports can get taken way out of context and too serious. You want to win, you want to do it the right way. Is everybody perfect in that? No, probably not. But if they're going at it through the love of the game is great. But I'm not sure if you saw on the news, and I don't know all the details, but there was a fight where someone had got taken to the hospital at Kirkwood. Really? After a youth 8th grade game between
Eastside
and
Flyers
and I believe maybe the Kirkwood Junior
I was
team.
supposed to be there. I missed that. I was upset. I missed that. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, so a coach got jumped or hit after the game in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Really?
And then his friend or girlfriend or a female that was there got hit by the same guy, and so she's
So was
I
it a
guess
coach from another team or was it just a fan?
I don't know. They
Because I'll
didn't
tell you
say.
what, and I'm sure you've seen it because you've been around, but it can get a little hairy, man, with
Oh yeah.
some of the fans, take stuff a little too seriously.
I mean, these are kids,
Yeah,
right? Like
seventh,
running
eighth graders. Yeah,
plays that are, at 9 times out of 10, the people watching are only watching where the ball goes and have no idea what's going on the field.
yeah, and usually you got the young guys in this place like Kirkwood. They're playing football all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming it was an older crowd, but it might have been a
I
younger
think it was the
crowd.
8th grade.
Was it eighth grade? It could have been a younger crowd, younger team of players. But man, the expletives fly.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of time the parents are standing right there on the sideline, and it's just S show.
Yeah, it really
You
is,
know?
and it's unfortunate because that culture in football, as you get higher in the game, there's no tolerance for it in high school. I mean, at most high schools, there's no tolerance for it in college at most levels, and there's no tolerance for it in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what behaviors are these people mimicking? I don't get, other than the fact that they don't quite understand what the purity of youth football really is and what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, sure, put your best effort forward. If you want to win, go out there and try and win the game to the best of your ability, but you don't cheat, you don't do things that are illegal, all those things. You don't try and run scores up on people, all that stuff, right? But I also believe you got to protect yourself at all times, like being in a fight.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean,
like,
and
if
that's a shame because it is a sport. It is a sporting event, and unfortunately, a lot of people treat it like it's a street fight,
right,
and it's not. You're trying to teach and mold young men, and while allowing them to have fun. And back to what we were originally talking about with it, I really think by seventh and eighth grade, you just need to play it like a regular football game.
oh yeah,
I understand you're in elementary school, you don't want anybody to get hurt or embarrassed. You want to build them up. That's when you should, have the running clock and all
let me
that
tell
good
you,
stuff.
8th grade, they are. I would argue 8th grade football is the best level of football in the area besides varsity football, because freshman football, they're reassigning teams and bringing kids from different areas,
Yeah.
forming a new team. Kids leave, you're kind of reshuffling the deck, and then varsity, obviously you have that conglomeration, those two groups of kids, juniors and seniors, most likely, with a few sophomores, maybe a few freshmen, but by and large that's a gelled team, if you will. Whereas you go down the JV is usually chaotic, freshman's chaotic, but 8th grade is the culmination of a youth football experience. So
Yeah.
the football is usually pretty darn good.
It is pretty darn good. And I got to tell you what, a lot of guys that I watched last year in person playing eighth grade ball, they're starting or getting reps on varsity this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know about those guys. And people are like, well, what your database goes back to. I'm like, well, usually seventh, eighth grade, because those guys are the future. And you're
Yep.
right, it is really good stuff. And there's a lot of big, physically developed kids in eighth grade. East St.
Yes.
Louis it alone has three, I think it's three freshman linemen that are 6'6" or better. They go 6'6", 6'7", possibly 6'8".
Yeah.
Freshmen. Guess what? Those dudes were that size last year when they were playing eighth grade ball.
So, yeah, I mean, like, you get to start to see who those guys are. 8th grade is an emergent year. The tough thing with 8th grade, as you know, is there's kids who are at the end of their maturity cycle.
Yes.
So you got to be careful, because you got to kind of weed those guys out, because they're kind of like,
don't.
yeah, they're kind of like, oh, that's the All-American. And,
Right.
And they expect that kid's going to keep doing what he's doing. And
Correct.
you realize, like, one, he's done growing. He grew 2 years earlier than everybody, and he's a year older than everybody, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And then that kid just kind of peters off, right? So we always call him, middle school hero, high school zero,
Yeah.
right? Because that is very real. And a lot of times those kids and those parents at the games. I mean, I observed a situation maybe 3-4 weeks ago at a scrimmage, and it might have been a 5th or a 6th grade team, and there was a kid who was clearly better than the other kids. He looked like he had probably played, more competitive football than what all these kids had played.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just like a man amongst boys. But then, I'm watching him, and he's got this. I've seen the behavior a million times where you're like, he's just more confident on the field, and he's a little faster than everybody. And so he's just like, shoving kids and stiff arming them.
Yeah.
and big hits on defense because there's kids sitting around don't understand the game yet.
Yep.
And then his mom was on the field because we were warming up right by them, and she was screaming about how good, he didn't score, and then she was mad at him for not scoring. He should score every time he touches the ball. All these things, and you start to look, and then I look over at like his brother, who's probably like a sophomore in high school, standing next to the mom, and I'm like, that's probably going to be, I bet you that kid is a very average, and you don't even know he's on the team type of kid.
Mm-hmm.
He's okay.
Yeah.
That's probably what he looked like when he was at that same age.
Yeah.
And you hate to say that, but that is realistic.
It's just reality.
It's reality.
And I see it all the time. I've been doing this a few years now, and I can't tell you the number of times I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have the middle school guy who'll score 30 touchdowns in a season.
Yeah.
And
he's going to the league.
Average. Yeah. Well, yeah. Very average high school career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it. And so who are the standouts of your, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the game.
Your game? My game?
Yeah, I'm interviewing you now.
So we, well, let me get my sponsored drink here. It was good. It was fun. Yeah, first form. Here we go. But yeah, really fun to have to get out and actually have a game that counts, right? But we played Fox. They're big kids. A bunch of big boys, and they like to run the ball. Mm-hmm. And we got in a situation where they played cover 0, and we like to throw the ball. And there wasn't much safety, no safety help at all.
Yeah.
And they were trying to bring the house, and we were able to, connect on numerous passes. So we were pretty efficient. We got of 18 plays. We were, a pretty high percentage of passes, and just.
Who's your quarterback?
My son, actually.
He's a guy.
Braden Bierman.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so he had a pretty good day. So we got out pretty fast, but it's one of those things where we have, I think, 9 kids that can catch the ball, which
really
for an age group of kids,
yeah.
And they've all been together since 5th grade. So they come in, they train, they have myself and another guy, Coach Munn, who rips balls at them constantly. So they're pretty used to catching footballs, but it's pretty cool group of kids. There'll be a group of guys that are going to be, there's probably 4 or 5.
Go ahead. Tell me who are some of the standouts. Go ahead. Who
Antoine Porter Jr. He's like a 6'2" tight end. Really good. He's going to be good. Real lean. Kid named Jake Hartle, who's a big D-line linebacker. He probably project more in linebacker in high school, but he's a center now. And D-line, interior lineman, just really solid. Big, he's long.
Yeah.
He had 2 or 3 hits that, you don't see many even on Friday nights like this. Like knocked a kid's mouthpiece out. Significant. Kid named Landon Bacula, who's a receiver. Caleb Voigt, another receiver. And we got 2 running backs, a kid named Vincent Kilgore and Tyler Mossman, who are both those guys. We time all of our kids, right? So both of them ran, a little bit around 19 miles per hour this offseason. So like they're top 99 percentile
as 8th graders, yeah.
As 8th graders. So, those 8th graders are hard to do 40s with because they don't have there's not a lot of mass, but like the Vincent Kilgore kid's 180 pounds.
Wow.
And he's, probably 5'11", and he runs 19. So he's
really,
and he probably projects more of like he'll probably be like
this name down.
He'll be more like a backer, I think, in high school, or like an H-back. Yeah. He's been a tailback since he's been a little kid, but he's big, getting bigger and bigger and stronger. His dad played football at Arizona, so he's got good.
Does he have a skill set to play back at running back in high school?
He could. I think.
I think they're north south.
He's north south. He's a foot race guy. And once he gets to the edge, he's gone. But he's big. He'll put his shoulder down on you.
Does he play backer for you as well?
Yeah, he's outside backer. So he's good looking athlete. Another kid named Logan Thomas plays safety. He's real rangy. He had a nice punt return. He got called back. Another kid named Patrick Ramala, whose brother played at SLU, who's at Missouri Southern. So he's a really good receiver. So there's a whole group, and I'm going to miss a bunch of kids, but we have a whole.
It happens.
It's fun because there's a whole group of kids and I'm mainly talking receivers and a few defensive guys because that's kind of what that game presented to us, right?
We're talking about the game.
So, but I think it's fun to see where those guys are at, right? And that they're working. And my thought, my hope for them would be that this is just the beginning, right? If you want this to be something you're going to do long term, right? Like a few of them have aspirations of playing in high school, obviously, and then playing beyond. And so, with that being said, like it doesn't just happen by accident. So there's a methodology, and there's a way that you do things, and I think kids and their parents sometimes get like this fantasy of, well, I'm just going to go to this high school and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go do, and it's like they don't understand. Like, one, you got to be the best player. They're pulling kids from every high school across the state, right? I mean, certain high schools more than others, but that's just because there's a larger concentration of kids at that school. But if you're a baller and you can play, you're gonna find them, right? I mean,
absolutely.
And then when they say they're going to find you, JP's the kind of guy who's going to find you. But it's conversations like this where you're like, wait, how big is he?
Yeah.
What did he run? And they're looking for outlier stats. I mean, what I'm looking at when I go to the youth games is, we scout, looking at guys like if you're playing a team, it's like, okay, are they just chucking the ball up, or are they actually like making reads? Like, I mean, there were situations where, I mean, we're putting stuff in where, I mean, we have pass protections. We have, we're checking in and out of things based off of what the defense is giving us.
You have more advanced passing concepts, I think, than a lot of middle school.
I would say we probably.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, when the tough thing is though, at that age, you got to be really careful with it. And it's even in high school. From my days in coaching in high school, is sometimes the defenses are not necessarily sound by principle of what they're supposed to be doing. And so like there's kids that are not supposed to be where they're supposed to be, right? And like, like for instance, this offseason, like we've spent a whole host of time, training our quarterbacks on just read training and development of that. So like whatever their system is they get plugged into, they need to know the progression of where they're supposed to look and who they're reading, right? And sometimes, we were talking about this before the show, some guys just can't see it.
Yep.
Okay. Some guys are just not taught it, so they never can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys are taught it, they can't see it. And there are some guys whose brains move really fast in that context.
This is natural.
And I'll tell you what the number one thing, we'll use 7-on-7 as an example. So 7-on-7, the unfortunate thing is that you and I have talked about. It's like in many regards, it's a dumbing down of the game, only because there's no run, there's no no true run reads, and so like guys are just dropping. So you're seeing stuff that you're never going to see in real life.
Yep.
So, but when some of those passing downs, it makes it really difficult because they know the pass is coming. So the quarterbacks that can see it really well, sometimes in 7-on-7, don't even look that good at 7-on-7, but then you put them on a tackle team and you're like, oh man, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the ability to see something faster than like, I stand behind the play. I know what the play is. I know what the coverage is. I have an idea of where I think the ball should go. And the ball comes out, it goes somewhere else. And you have two other coaches going, oh, look there. And the ball's already, the guy's running down the field. That's when you got people that are like, their brain is clicking faster than say yours is. And so from that perspective, like I was meeting with the guy this past weekend, and he came in town, Doug Brady's guy's name. He coached with us for years. He used to coach at SEMO and Central Methodist, and now he's a quarterback trainer out in California. And he's got a system where they film, like off the helmet. And so like every coach, like we're either standing behind the play or we have the bird's eye view of like where the ball should have gone. So it's very easy to be like, what should have gone there? But the reality of it is like it's coming straight out of the quarterback's eyes. And so you're on a level plane with him. And so like they have a VR system that you basically can look around and it will, you can see what the quarterback saw.
Does that make it easier when you're
it's a great teaching tool, right? Because then you can start to
explain it to them when they're watching film,
right?
Because they can see it themselves.
And if their eyes are lagging or they're here and then they spin back to it fast, I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, reading a defense is not easy, but I will say there are certain people whose brains, and granted, there are that can do it really easily, but there are also some systems that are really user friendly, right? And so but you'll see those user friendly systems are quick check downs, right? It's one thing for a quarterback to come in and check check someone into something based off of coverage. It's another thing for the system to be pretty, user friendly. So a kid's just, well, you go here or there, right? And if not there, take off and run.
Yep.
You always say, like, if you can do 2 reads, you could be a high school quarterback. If you can do 3, you're a college quarterback. If you're reading 4,
I've seen some college quarterbacks that wouldn't do 3 reads though.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, there are
that have made it to the NFL.
It's crazy. You're right.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think we're starting to see, you have the uber athletic quarterbacks are going into the league. Offenses are starting to kind of like adjust a little bit based off of what those guys can do. But the problem is the defenses will catch up so fast that it's going to be hard for some of those guys to survive, I think, in the league, because you got to know how to run the different systems and understand where the ball is supposed to go based off of pressure, based off of alignment and leverage, all that stuff. So I think it's a pretty cool deal. I try with our quarterbacks to do, we don't want to get in the way of what they're doing with their coaches, right? But we're also at the same time giving them a different eye set of hey, from a mechanical standpoint, this is what we need to focus on, and then from a strategic standpoint, like for instance, you got cover 0, you have a high like a low strong safety that's down in the box covering the slot, and then you got a kid standing too high that he should be down on the other slot, but he's out of position, right? So one would say, depending on what the play call is, and if the quarterback has ability to change, then he should just check to the side where that safety's off and he's not down in the box, just throw a hitch to him, right? So, but say it's down a distance dictates that you need to get vertical and get more yardage. So then, what that pass the quarterback throws whether it's a touch ball, if they drive the ball at the receiver, there's so many nuances to that you got to let the quarterback, throw the ball that he thinks he should throw, but also then be able to be like, hey, look, that ball should have been, he was at even when you threw it. You don't want to drive that ball. That ball's got to be a, one ball beyond, right? And so, let's use Brady Cook as an example, right? Like, so the knock on him right now this season's been, oh, he can't connect on the deep ball.
Got to have a new knock. Yeah.
And so, I watch it and I say, well, week 1, not knocking Luther, but you're the top receiver in the country, and the ball comes right over, and you don't extend your arms, and then you complain that there's not getting enough deep balls. That's kind of a problem, because you got to run through that ball, right? You have to at least give an effort to catch it, because you're right. It does look like it went too long if you keep your arms in, but you have long arms, run through the ball. We teach our kids run and extend at the last second. So not to say he would have caught it, but the thing is to the novice eye, it's like, well, that ball is a little too long. Well, what would you want it to be, short so you can get picked?
Right.
I mean, what do you want? So the quarterbacks are kind of in a no-win situation sometimes.
Correct. And how much of that do you think it is that people aren't nuanced enough to realize what you just said?
Oh,
right.
It's crazy.
Or pick up on the fact that players, especially when they're better players, can get, what's the word I can use? A little lackadaisical.
Complacent,
entitled.
Yeah.
Right. That ball's got to be on the money to me. Right. Because I'm so-and-so, I don't do that anymore. Right.
Right.
I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I'm open. Get me the ball right here where I like it.
And the problem is the NFL scouts look at that and they see right through it, right? Because they want to see they're paying money for those guys, right? And so I think, to your point, that is there is a complacency sometimes of that. And I think quarterbacks, a guy told me one time, like, hey, look, like, as a quarterback's parent, your kid has to throw every ball perfect. Otherwise, he's a bum, right? He sucks. Get him out of there. Yeah. Whatever. He can't make a mistake. Whereas the receiver's parents or the running back's parents, the kid drops the ball or fumbles the ball. Oh, it's just a bad one. Yeah, he just a little long, whatever he is. Oh, that guy was there. So there's no middle ground, right? The quarterback's either the bum and guy who got in trouble because he got us, screwed his team over because he didn't make a perfect pass. But they forget the drop ball, the 2 downs before that put us in a 3rd and long.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a lot of that goes on, but from a perspective of Cook's season so far, I mean, I mean, I think theoretically, they're in a similar spot as they were last year. The only glaring difference to me, they don't seem like they're moving the ball as efficiently. Cook was 80%, completion percentage last week.
Yeah.
But they are missing Cody Schrader badly.
Oh,
because the run game is not firing. And once they can get that run game to fire, they're going to be in a much better position. But it's certainly not it does not resemble what they had last year with Cook throwing, and then those guys downfield, and then Cody Schrader ripping off 20, 30-yard runs.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that yet. They just they remember Cook from last year, and they expect him to carry the load now.
Yeah,
and don't think, hey, he's missing an integral piece.
And those backs are not bad, but they're not comfortable yet. Right. They're not Cody Schrader, and maybe they might not be at any point. Yeah. So, but it's
game 2. You're still working at it. Back to the receiver in scouting and what I do. Right, I don't cut people slack. Right, if that ball is near you, you better catch it, or that's what's going to separate you from a guy who's going to be looked at from D1 schools, FBS schools, versus a guy who's he's an NAIA player, right? Whether you're a good high school player or not.
Yeah,
because and college coaches, they don't cut them slack either.
No,
right? So
until you get to that extreme, high level guy that no one wants to correct, right?
Right. So if you need everything to be perfect for you to make plays and to pad your stats, and forget it, it's not going to happen, because college coaches catch on to that right away.
And the number one thing, the thing that differentiated you see with high school receivers, there's a lot of guys that have, let's just call it, above average hands.
Yeah.
But they struggle when they're near someone catching the ball. So there's any sort of contact or anybody in close proximity to them. That's where you start to see the guys who are the guys, right? Because they come down with the ball. And the unfortunate truth is there's a lot of kids who kind of sneak through the system that maybe are really good show ponies, and then they get into game situations where there's other guys that they're going to double team them. They're going to put people, they're going to be contesting. They're going to contest catches with them, and they maybe aren't as good as they think they are. And I got news for you. You get to college, they're all contested.
I just saw a kid on Thursday, Luther North against Blair Oaks, kid named Q Whitfield. Unbelievable circus. I mean, one of the best high school, the one-handed
number
catch,
6, right?
Yeah. Just one, and not just one-handed catch. He made several of those, including on his touch. And he makes the contested catches.
Yep.
That one-handed grab, he was covered, right? There was coverage right there. But he's one of those guys. He's somebody that kids should emulate.
And there's a lot of guys that are not great contested ball catchers, and those are the guys.
Yes.
If they make it to college, they're going to have to probably change positions, right? So
or transfer a bunch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so, or play safety. So, funny story about the effort thing. So my first year of high school coaching, I'm like 20-something, whatever, early 20s. And I had a kid, nameless. He's a grown man now, but we were working on laying out for the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The kid, so we're throwing the ball, and I was teaching them how to catch it and then roll through onto the ground. So just kind of keep themselves safe. But, the technique of driving to the ball, shooting their hands at the last second, laying out. Wasn't going to be a long time. It was something we needed to work on. The kid, so I'd thrown the ball. I got third string kids laying out, having fun, doing their thing. Kids were getting into it. Our best receiver, by far. Every time he'll either run underneath it and catch it, kind of kill the drill, or just let it hit the ground.
Yeah.
And they said, I said, what are you doing? I'm not going to dive. Like, you're not going to dive.
Yeah.
Like, why? I don't need to dive. Back to what you were saying.
That's exactly
because he was the top dog on the sophomore team at the time, right?
And I'm sure he was always screaming, get me the ball.
So then he said, I'm not diving. And then I said, oh, okay. All right. And he said, my dad said I don't need to dive. I said, your dad's here at practice? Why did he tell you this ahead of time? How do you know we were running this drill?
Yeah.
I said, are you going to dive in the game? Oh, yeah, I'll dive in the game. I said, well, we're going to work on how we dive so we can do it in the game.
Yeah.
So anyway, there were some choice words I had that I didn't care for the disrespect. I said a few things. He ended up getting put out of practice. Next day, show up. We brought down a crash mat so that no one would get hurt when they dove, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he still wouldn't dive. So he ended up, it was early. I learned a lesson early on in my coaching career. I was like, hey, look, if there's guys that you want to rely on that don't want to put in the little work and they think they're better than it, and you know what? He was an average. He ended up being the best guy on our JV team, our sophomore team that year. And he never did anything after that. I mean, he was the best. He played for 2 more years. He was their best receiver.
Yeah.
Never played. And then years later, I saw him working at a convenience store.
So, yeah, I mean, that happens. So much of it is mindset, and I was having a conversation with a really talented defensive lineman about it, and I had kept asking him, and this was after a game. I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want it? Yeah, I want it. No. Do you really want it? Because you're going to have to work and build yourself to be what you say you want. Yeah. Okay. The mouth was saying one thing. I could tell by his body language and just the shoulders and everything. It's like, we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there's so much of that. And I'm talking about good high school players. And I think that there's so many kids don't realize what separates being a good or very good, or even somebody who's going to get some looks from some colleges versus being on another level, right, and playing at your highest level possible.
Remember, there's a lot of kids who play football. There's very few football players.
Yeah.
That is what it boils down to. There are so many kids that love the thought of being a football player and enjoy being with their teammates. They enjoy all that.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate truth is that they think that they have to play a role. Like, I want to be a college guy. And it's like, no, not every kid in high school football gets to go to college anyway. So that's fine. But you don't have to play college football, right? You could be a really good high school football player. But if you're going to say you want to play college football and you actually mean it, then there's certain steps that you need to take that are incumbent upon you as a player, and parents. You should be helping as well. Like, to think that the high school coach should do all of it for you is not going to happen. Like, it's not. It's very few and far between. There's too many other things for that coach to do. Too many other responsibilities. Sure, they can help you, and they shouldn't hinder you. But at the end of the day, like, there's things you need to be doing, and the number one thing for the player is taking care of business, and prepare for the season, and just showing up to play football. I mean, that is. You're going to get found out eventually. And unfortunately, there's a lot of kids that do. And there's parents that live in fairy tale land because, we went down to Mizzou's camp this summer. He really likes it there. He thinks he wants to go there. Their recruiting class is full for your grade.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room for you.
Right.
And the NCAA just changed the rule, no walk on. So what are you going to do now? I mean, but it's just this naivete that these people have about the process. And a person like yourself or myself will talk to them about it, and they poo-poo it. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, what do you know?
Right.
That's like, no, you've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it a long time. Like, we're at least that's why we're doing the show, so we can talk to them about it. And it's like, but there are certain situations. I mean, I've had situations with our kids in our facility, kids on teams that the parents know best, and it's like, okay, well, we're just going to go do this. Okay, great. Go do that. And you come back and report back to me in 2 to 3 years and let me know how well that went. Because the person that's telling you they're going to help you, they're just as naive as you are because they've never done it themselves either.
Yeah.
Right. And so the blind leading the blind often becomes a real problem, right, in this world. I'm sure it happens in softball, and baseball, and volleyball. I'm sure it happens the same.
My biggest thing is I hate to see people waste their opportunity. Right. And that's why a lot of what I do is to help people with that opportunity, to realize their opportunity, to realize their potential.
Yeah.
Because, man, there's nothing worse than looking back and thinking, man, I should have done that. If I would have done this, and then I could have,
would have, should have, right?
Could have, should have. You don't want to live with that. And so many guys do blow it, do pass the opportunity by. And, you just don't want to see people waste their opportunity. Switching gears real quick. You mentioned about the no more walk-ons. Talk a little bit about that with the whole, what your thoughts are as far as that and what that's going to lead to.
So they're still fighting over, I think, the actual roster limits, right? Like what they're going to allow. So like 120 or 105 or 100, whatever. So that the way it works is that they're going to have to put those guys on scholarships. So they're going to have to be like this is Power 4 guys. They're going to have to pay them.
I was going to say who's going to pay?
So,
who's going to pay that?
Well, right. They're the TV deals, and so therein lies what we keep talking about. Like at some point, the other shoe is going to drop, and these schools are going to go, "Hey, man, 20% of our budget now is going to pay these guys, right? Do we really need 30 baseball players because we have to pay them scholarships the same? And do we really need 30 gymnastics people or whatever, gymnasts or whatever it might be?" And at some point, that's why I think it just becomes logical to carve the Power 4 and move them to their own thing. But then what does that do to the MACs and the group of 5 guys? I mean, because you got the MAC teams, they're going to stop getting scheduled. They keep beating these top 10 teams, or keep scaring them. But Northern Illinois certainly beat Notre Dame at home, right? And then Miami of Ohio goes there in a few weeks.
That's a good program, man.
I mean, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that those guys are going to get screwed worse than anybody because like they are not in the good old boys club, right? They're a hell of a program, right? They do a great job. They're a breeding ground for players and coaches to go to those Power 4 schools. But like now all of a sudden, you limit the you say, hey, look, here's what the roster is going to be. Before it was 85. Okay, you got 85 scholarships. No, we're going to bump it to 105. Okay, fine. We got all these extra guys. But that means they're recruiting classes. So then recruiting is going to get even worse because they're going to be bringing in 2 to 3 kids per position group because now they have extra bandwidth, right? So they can recruit kids. So, if it's my son, he's a quarterback and he's got that opportunity, I've always told kids like, hey, you don't go where there's 2 quarterbacks come in the same class. If you're a quarterback,
right? Like
just don't do it.
Yep.
Right. If you can avoid it, right? That might become the new norm. Right, because they're gonna start stocking guys away, right? And then if they would put changes on the transfer portal, then it's gonna be a real nightmare. But to do away, and I know that the college coaches do not like getting away with doing away with walk-ons, but I don't know if they're gonna have a choice because that was decided in a court of law in a bankruptcy, or not a bankruptcy, to avoid bankruptcy, a antitrust lawsuit. So, I mean, the NCAA had to do something, otherwise they were going to get nailed with a $20 billion fine, or lawsuit. So I don't know. It's going to be really tricky to see how that goes. But let's say it goes into effect next year. Does Cody Schrader? Do those guys happen? Is someone willing to take a chance on him to give him a full ride when they should have? He was an All-American coming from a D2.
That's the thing. Are they going to take the chance? Because you know how it is as far as taking risks and chances with recruiting, right? They're not so hip to do that.
Heck no. Yeah, right. So I don't.
So some of those guys are gonna fall through the crack, and even low. I mean, lower guys. At some point, I could see some lower level college teams becoming a club sport.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about, we talked a couple weeks ago. Iowa State was building the wrestling facility, and I guess they put it on hold or they canceled it, whatever it was, because of the changes that are coming that they've kind of the foreshadowing of those changes. And then they, then the next word out of, they're thinking is it might turn into a club sport, right? And that's Iowa State wrestling. That's unbelievable. That's lineage and history and all of that. But then you look and you go, well, wait, if I got a scholarship 20 wrestlers and pay full boat for them, they're not driving revenue into our coffers.
Right.
It's just an expense line, right? So okay, where does it make sense to keep doing that? So I don't know. It's such a strange deal, but I think, the next 4 years it'll probably be worked out. And we're going to see then, but once they start paying kids through the colleges, through this lawsuit, through that determination, then you're going to see the collective bargaining. You're going to see the unionization. I mean, you're going to see.
And don't you see big money entering it at some point and just kind of taking over
100%.
with owning the teams.
Oh,
right?
it'll be there's private equities that's circling them.
And
right?
if that happens, then you're going to find those elite teams paying for the MAC teams, right? Because they're going to need the competition.
Yeah,
They're,
you
they're
have
not going
to.
to. They're not going to play each other.
Yeah, you can only play each other so much
Right.
unless they do like an NFL style league, and it's just going to be those. Then they're going to have players getting traded, and like, I mean,
It could
crazy.
It could get.
And that's I know people think we're bizarre for even talking about, but you have to realize the super conference, or so they call it.
Mhm.
That's all this has been with the Big Ten and SEC combining forces. That's what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
to some degree, I'm not going to say that they're doing it, but at some degree, like if it continues the way it was, one would think at some point there could be some collusion involved, right? Because of behind the scenes, they've been plotting this all along. All these other schools, which I think Houston Baptist sued and said, we're not paying for you guys, the Power Five to do this lawsuit you lost. We never benefited from it. And oh, by the way, that money, we need that money to run our program. And they say like most the Power Five, our Group of Five and FCS schools are going to be short $400,000 to $500,000 a year for the next 10 years to pay off the lawsuit.
That's
for
crazy.
Something that they never even benefited from. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds. And unfortunately, I mean, the good thing for Mizzou is they're in the club. They're in the club. So they're
think about the moves Mizzou made.
Unreal.
Right? The foresight to go into the SEC. And I know there were a lot of people locally who were against them being in the SEC.
Yeah.
And there were some people who don't know much screaming, oh, they should be in the Big Ten. But think about the just what a great decision.
Beautiful.
And I mean, just
man, think about if they're still in the Big 12. Ooh. I mean, it's scary.
Right.
Because the Big 12, unfortunately, has had all of its show ponies picked away. And that's not to demean Kansas State's a great program. Iowa State's a great program. They're great programs. KU's a great program. Oklahoma State,
yeah.
But they've been relegated because the big dogs, the Texas and the Oklahomas now are gone, right? A&M left. You have all those, people that are gone, and then now what do you have? Like you have those teams, but there's not enough other teams around them to really solidify it. So unfortunately, then they don't have the same clout that they once had, and it's unfortunate. But Mizzou, by virtue of going into the SEC and then also competing in the SEC, now they're a top 10 team again, and they're not going anywhere.
No,
they have a seat at the table, and they're gonna, whatever happens, they're going in. And I think, I told you this summer I was at the Manning Academy with my son, and I was talking to some guys that would be industry guys that are there that are kind of in the know. And the one interesting thing, this guy's like a national guy, he said, there's going to be some like well-known schools that get left out of this deal.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's going to be really hard to see. He's like, if their administrations don't make good choices and they're not at the right place at the right time, they could get left out. And these are traditional. But then you go back in the history of football. I mean, St. Louis University, right, was in a catbird seat to be, one of the premier teams in the country. They were decent back then, right? 1906, the first forward pass ever done in football was done in St. Louis by St. Louis University. I mean, started a revolution, right? But they're not here, right? And you go to these other schools. There, you can go. There's so many schools around the country that were like big name back in the day that you're not even hearing about them. So you fast forward, and because we know some of these big name schools, we assume, because we've always known them to be a football school, they're one choice away from being left outside of this thing and being relegated to a smaller program that's not going to have the revenue, which then eventually will just choke them out, right? If you don't have the revenue, you can't compete in this game. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. But I don't know. Mizzou, I'm excited for them because I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens to Missouri State, because they're making a transition. They paid all this money to transition to something that may be changing more rapidly than they can adapt.
Yeah, it was still a move they had to make, though.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to do a Lindenwood. To move you have to make.
Yep.
And so I think that That's smart. That's foresight. Does it work? Does it wind up not working? You'll find out, but you got to make that move.
Yeah, because the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Lindenwood and you stay at D2, or you're FCS, Missouri State, and you stay, you're better. I think there's more shelter up top.
Correct.
Right. I think there's going to be less shelter down below. So I don't know. It should be fun to see. I mean, I hate the fact that it could really screw the game over, but I think at the end of the day, the higher levels game is going to be, it's going to really affect recruiting. But the higher level game is going to be a really cool product. I think it's going to be better than what it is today.
It is going to be really cool. It's going to be pro football. And I know people don't like to hear that, but it's kind of there now.
Yeah.
And if you go to any of the games, I mean, it feels like it. It's starting to feel like it. And I've talked to some the people that seem to have the biggest problem are the older longtime fans, right? Because they still want it to be raw state U. I was like, I get it. I totally get it. I would too. In fact, I was saying that, I hate that I don't feel that same way as I used to. But you figure out once you see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. You and we have a unique view to it, right?
Yes.
From the Lindenwood camp of how the recruiting has changed, right?
Yeah.
To
it's hard to be just a fan.
Yeah. I mean, and how you talk to these kids about what their experience is and how the coaches, interact and some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like with medical stuff and like it's just
politics.
Politics. Yeah. So it's tough to not just treat it as a business because that's what it is. And
every kid who's listening or every parent who's listening right now, if your child's getting recruited, you better treat it as a business. Because it is 100% a business.
I was speaking with the mom of one of our kids that we've trained a long time who's in the NFL.
Sometimes a dirty business.
And what's interesting is the mom said that her son was still coming to grips with it being such a business in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is a guy who's been at a major university, goes to the NFL. He's done really well for himself, but he's still coming to grips with how cutthroat and how business like it really is, how corporate is.
Still a fan mentality.
Right. Yeah. And so what's interesting is he probably didn't even realize how it was pretty similar environment in college, right? And so, but that's only going to become more pronounced over the next couple of years. So imagine him who's been through this major college environment, still being tough to come to grips with that.
Yeah.
Now take yourself and put kids that are in high school coming from something that is not going to be ever, I should say ever, but it's not going to be nearly as corporatized, and be like as business like. You come now to a big level, high level school, and it's like this, like it's a corporation, right? They have, funding that's coming in from, like private equity, and there's big money being spent, and there's demands. Right. And there's a cutthroated, behavior because that's what's demanded when people want return on their investment. So you have that, but you come from a place that is so innocent and so natural and so good. Right. High school, there's nothing more pure than the high school football.
And we get to watch it because we get to watch these guys go through it from, say, like 7th, 8th grade through the college experience and see how that changes them and how it opens their eyes. And the real bummer about that is you get to see the innocence die, right?
Oh, yeah.
The innocence of just, I love the game. I want to play this because I think it's this. And then
they realize reality. It's a full-time job.
Yes.
And I still think it's really interesting when it's the argument is, well, they're getting a free education. They shouldn't get paid.
Yeah.
You haven't been there. You haven't done it. You have no context. They're working as many hours, if not more hours, than you work in your regular job.
Yeah, you wouldn't give your time away for free, right?
Right.
For just a
you're the guy who's demanding $15 an hour for McDonald's employees, and these guys are doing something that is yielding far more money than a McDonald's employee, and they're doing it multiple hours per day, right? And they were not getting paid. Right. And now they're going to get paid, and
it's a tough lifestyle.
Oh, it's not for the faint of heart. And so you are, yes, I get it. You're getting paid and you're doing something you love, but it's a job. And so, but your experience is so unique and so different than those other kids that are at the college that are cheering for you on the weekends and then that are partying, showing up drunk to the game and then leaving early.
Some of who showed up because of you.
Right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Someone went to school because of what you did the last season. Right. And so, but though that is a wholly unique experience, right? And it's part of, and you playing the game is part of those people's experience in college, right? And to think that people think, well, yeah, that you're just getting an education. Well, there's a lot of people sitting in those stands, and a lot of those students that got a free education for having good grades, and the NCAA would prohibit that same kid from getting, a scholarship for his grades and football, right? So, like, come on, let's be realistic about it.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to where everybody has a corporate name on their jersey underneath the whatever university it is that they're.
Oh yeah.
So Mizzou plays Boston College this week, which should be a really good game.
I think so.
Ranked 24th. I mean, I was having the discussion with people, and you're really going to see more of what you have. This is going to be your first real test of what you have. No disrespect to Murray State or Buffalo, but this is a whole nother level. And I think you're going to find out where your weaknesses actually are. They're going to be, magnified.
Bill O'Brien, the head coach at Boston College, is a hell of a coach, and he's going to have a good game plan. So it's going to be a great test before they start getting into SEC play. So I think it should be. It looked a lot easier a few weeks ago. Now it doesn't.
Right.
So
right. Oh, yeah. And if you think there are people complaining about stuff now, wait to see if it's a more difficult game, and see where the fair weather people. Show
plenty of them.
Show their head. Any other takeaways from the game? Did you get a chance to really?
Yeah, I got to
delve into it.
Yeah, I got to watch quite a bit of it. I like usually because we'll have a game or something going on, so I'll tape it and then go back and watch. But I thought it was a good solid game. I mean, the defense is solid. I mean, they've 2 back-to-back shutouts, which they probably should have done, right? But at the end of the day, I think they're gonna have some slugfest this year. There's not gonna be any walk-away victories. They're gonna have to play it through and through. They're not gonna have to just. No one's rolling over because Mizzou walks in the door, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right, and I think LSU got tested by Nicholls State.
Think about the parity.
The parity is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then you got South Florida was taking it to Alabama. Idaho the week before gave Oregon everything they could freaking handle, right? And then you start looking. Then obviously Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. The parity is beyond normal, right? And I think what it is, you're probably seeing these guys drop down. That we're like, hey, screw 100%. This. I wanted to go play. Yeah. I mean, look at the number of Mizzou players that are on other teams' rosters, right? Look at the number of Alabama kids that have gone to other places. I mean, there's
the portal and recruiting. The number of guys who are playing at Wyoming or wherever who could be playing at a Mizzou or a Kansas State or that. So you're going to face those guys with these, lesser level teams.
And they have a chip on their shoulder and they're hungry.
Yep.
Right. That's a dangerous combination.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. Did you get a chance to see any high school games this week?
I got to watch a little of the CBC Bryant game, which, man, that team was good. I mean,
their quarterbacks just lights out.
And they had a receiver, I think number 12. I forgot the kid's name. He was, I mean, hard to match. Yeah. Very hard to match. So I think CBC was probably happy for them to get out of town. I think they were really, I don't know if that was like a home and home deal with them, but I bet they're done with playing Bryant, Arkansas.
Yeah, really good team from
really solid.
There. I got to see some really good quarterback play. Like I said, I was at the Blair Oaks and Luther North game. Jonathan Moore, 5 touchdown passes, 14 of 20 for 271 yards, 5 touchdown passes.
Great kid,
young guy
coming alive
again. Showed it in middle school. Got the chance to watch him play in middle school, and he was just physically better than everybody else, and talent-wise, he was better than anybody else. And he's just carried it on over. Yep. Has the opportunity to be the quarterback now because Corey Hollis is playing at Parkway North. And I'm telling you what, Jonathan really has a bright future. I mean, he's a kid who was able to make really nice reads, and that doesn't hurt that he has possibly the best wide receiver core, just as far as talent and depth goes. But that was really good to see. The other quarterback, Tyler Bax out of Blair Oaks, another kid who's really talented, dual threat guy, threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for another one. Blair Oaks didn't have the horses that Luther North does, especially the line. Luther North just pretty much has it all, right?
Yep.
They got the run game, they got the
be,
passing game, they have size on the lines. They have a 400-pound nose guard who can move. David Gudger.
I don't know how you handle that.
That's tough to handle, and he's a fascinating story because I saw him from like freshman on, and I was talking to Coach Wagner about him. He's like, well, he's still around 400 pounds, but he can move now, where he couldn't, and that's just hard work and dedication. Yeah. And sometimes he has to play some O-line as well as his D-line position. And it's
400 pounds.
400 pounds, man.
Yeah, how do you move? I mean, we're not running A gap. He's taking both A gaps up.
Bingo. And so, Blair Oaks has some maybe 5'11", 215-pound guys. It's like, move them.
Bet those kids were tired getting on the bus.
They were tired. They left the field. They went right off the field. And I even said to Coach LePage, I'm like, hey, can I talk to a couple of your guys? He's like, we're going to be in the locker room. If you want to come up there, Ted LePage, former Mizzou player, is the head coach of that team. But Blair Oaks is going to be one of the top teams, and I think it's Class 3.
Yep,
it's going to be really good.
Their season will be just fine.
Yep. So Jonathan Moore, Tyler Bax, got to see Blue Springs against Lee Summit, not Lee Summit North, just Lee Summit. Braden Lehman, really talented quarterback. He's a senior. Got about a dozen lower level offers. Another kid had a really big night. I think over 300 yards, multiple touchdowns. Absolutely super talented wide receivers. The junior's name is Karsten Feeney. 6'2", 190 pounds, sub 4.5 40.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, he did it all. He ran for touchdowns. He caught touchdown passes. But Lee Summit is a good team, and it's a young team. And they're 2-0. They're going to be a team that's going to compete. I know a lot of people like to put out polls and like to put out rankings and stuff like that of teams, and everybody seems to get it wrong or has gotten it wrong, and now they're trying to move guys around. So
there's a lot of experts.
The experts, especially if you don't leave like 20 miles from your home to see a game, and you're trying to be an expert on what's going on across the state. That can be.
Or you're
tough.
Just looking at stat lines.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the thing now. A lot of people do that. A lot of people go through the internet and find names and find guys and find players, and they're going to write about it. They're going to write. I mean, they're going to put it on stuff.
The number of kids that are solid that get overlooked, like by maybe like that style of reporting, if you will, doesn't really mean anything. And I know it probably ticks kids off if their name isn't
people
mentioned.
Get mad.
They shouldn't worry about it.
No, it's meaningless stuff. That's fun stuff for whoever's doing it.
Yep.
James Fike, the other quarterback for Blue Springs, really nice game by him. He's a physical kid, played hard. And then Saturday back in St. Louis, watching Dylan Duff.
He's pretty good, isn't he?
He's all right kid, man.
Bad.
He's not too bad. And I think what people don't realize about Dylan, he's bigger and stronger than he ever has been, and he can run. And he made such an impressive 37-yard run. Didn't score, right? Scored on the next play, I do believe. But just his combination of size, speed, and particularly power and strength.
Similar to Brady Cook.
Similar, but bigger.
Yeah.
And stronger at the same stage.
Yeah, correct.
Right? So, I mean, he's going to fit perfectly into Kansas State's offense. He doesn't have to be the guy when he arrives.
Yep.
So think about that. He's going to have a year at least to learn, get acclimated, and then he's going to be the guy. But he was on the money with his throws. You're a little familiar with Dylan.
Yeah, I've worked with him once or twice.
Once or twice. Yeah. That's how you can make the Brady Cook analogy. But man, just his future is bright.
He's a stud. I mean, he's got a good demeanor about him. He's very confident. That's why you look at the Smet. I mean, anytime you got a quarterback like that, they got a shot, right? I mean, anytime you go into a game with a dude that can beat you with his feet and scramble, it's hard to defend, right? The quarterback as a runner, you don't want to overuse that, but man, if you get a guy that can do that, a guy that can hang in there, take some shots, and a guy that can run, it's tough to defend. It's just that extra guy, that extra guy really screws up defenses' game plans. And so, he's a guy who can do it.
It really was. And, all hats off to MICDS because they've got some good defensive linemen. Luke Allgaier, who's going to Iowa, plays offense and defense, and he was putting pressure. Ben Peterson was, Peyton Simon, another guy. And, they had some pretty good defensive back play. Graham Faust in particular, had a really good game.
Oh, he had a nice interception.
And so, Dylan had to run more than he wanted to. That wasn't the game plan. We spoke after the game, and that wasn't the game plan. But he'll make you pay.
That's, you see, think about it. It's like you play a team that has a guy that does not can't run, and so it's just a decisive victory for MICDS, right? In that scenario, then you have that guy that can run. Probably didn't want to run as much as he did, like you said. But that's the deciding factor because he is a Division I guy. He's an X factor, and so that's what And you look at like you just equate to like Brady Cook this past week at Mizzou when things were a little bit slower in their pass game. He took off on a couple, one of which he flipped into the end zone, and it was those are devastating runs for the defense because you don't account for that guy. That on your count, like it's oftentimes. He's not in your count because he's passing, right? But if he takes off, you are in a world of hurt.
Well, the thing about it is, I think everybody at this point knows Dylan can run, but they couldn't do anything about it.
Can't stop him.
Couldn't stop it. And hats off to MICDS again. They kept it close, 28-6. DeSmet, probably the number one team in the state, number one, number two team in the state. And so, man, they're just gonna keep rolling.
Yeah.
So. Great fun, great football. Got to be seeing a couple other stud quarterbacks this upcoming weekend. Not going to say where.
Okay. A little mystery.
Little mystery, but I'm going to let everybody think. But I'm coming to where you're at, guys. So put on a good show. I've been really lucky. I travel across the state and stuff, and I've seen nothing but really good games.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen nothing but everybody I've seen so far who's won is 2-0 at this point. So some good teams, a lot of good players out there. You got another game, I assume?
Yeah, we play this weekend Saturday, so it'll be fun. You got the Northwest Junior Lions, so it should be fun.
Yeah.
So it's again this time of year. I love the game planning aspect. I love getting together.
Oh man,
get all the stuff.
You love it.
I eat it up.
You're a mad scientist.
Yeah, I enjoy. I definitely like to watch a lot of film.
Yeah.
But. Again, for what? It's just to give the kids the opportunity to have fun and execute and get and to me, we do film study with our guys, and it's good to teach them what they're looking at, and then show them like how it could have been done better or what they did correctly. But you can, I'm a guy who I don't want anybody talking when we're in film, and I don't want to hear any excuses. Right?
See,
the film is right there, and I if nothing else, you're teaching them. And it be in an environment where they have to be held accountable, and it's okay to make a mistake and be held accountable, and then we learn from that. You just don't want to run from it, right? And so teaching people that on film is really hard because it's hard. Telling someone their baby's ugly, like, hey, you made that mistake and you don't want to own it.
We could do a whole show on telling people that their baby's ugly, but people wouldn't like us no more.
No,
so.
It is what you can't please them all, I guess.
You can't do that. You got to be honest. You got to have your integrity as far as that goes. But I'm the same way. I don't like to watch football with other people because I don't want to hear what I know what I'm looking at. I don't want to hear that stuff. I don't want to hear the nonsense, shall we say.
And there's a lot of it.
Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope.
That's it. All right. Well, this is it. This is it in the can. You can find us at the social media. The best producer in the business, Joe, just put up there. Your social media is
Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
And you can catch me at JP Rock MO on X and JP Rock Scout U on Instagram, and shoot us some questions. I know we've gotten some questions.
I got a topic that someone wants us to we'll bring up next week.
We're bad at that. So just keep reminding us and hitting us up with that. Hit us up with questions, anything you got as far as that goes. And that'll do it for this week. Everybody stay safe, have good games, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.